Andrew Bone's recruiting show starts now on BamaInsider.com. You want the best nuggets when it comes to Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting scoop? You got it right here from Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. Coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, it's Andrew Bone's recruiting show now on YouTube. All right, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson, and we got Andrew Bone in for another good night of recruiting. Bone, what's up, man? It's always good to talk recruiting, man. I always look forward to these. It looks like Tuesdays are night.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tuesday. It's funny. I used to write a column for the Tuscaloosa News back in the day, and it was. Everybody knew it was every single Tuesday, my Tuesday column every week, and now they got to learn a new game plan for us. It's our Tuesday night call-in show.
Yeah, it's been good to get the feedback from our subscribers, and the way it works is, the majority of our subscribers are at BamaInsider.com, so they get all the nuggets ahead of time. But we've been developing a good relationship on YouTube, so we want to bring the scoop to you too, and of course invite you to become a loyalty club member right here on YouTube. Or of course, become a premium subscriber on BamaInsider.com. If you're new to the show, thank you very much. Give us a thumbs up. We certainly appreciate it. Helps the content grow. How the show works is, we talk Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting. Alabama has 5 commitments right now. I'll turn on the call line in a little bit and kind of get the show warmed up and get everyone all dialed in. Then you'll have Andrew Bone, and we'll talk Alabama Crimson Tide football. I know that's why you guys are here. So in the comment box, let me know where you guys are coming from. We always appreciate to see where you guys are coming from all over the country, of course. And thanks for watching. So Bone, the last couple of weeks, Alabama has had a commitment. Number 4 was in, and number 5 last week with Kane Williams. And what's kind of on tap for the rest of this week? Are we once again on commitment watch?
Yeah, that's right. With the NCAA coming out last week and saying that the dead period was going to be extended until June the 30th, would not be surprised if we saw some more guys decide that they want to go ahead and jump on board and make their decisions. We'll probably see that kind of not just at Alabama but throughout the country. Guys who were hoping to make those visits in the month of June. They've been waiting patiently because we knew a lot of kids were going to take visits during the spring, during spring break, spring games, stuff like that. A lot of guys were going to make those trips, then hopefully make a decision before the summer started. Well, those trips didn't happen. They were hoping to make those visits in June. Now that's not going to happen. Maybe it happens in July. We don't know yet. We won't know probably for a little while. But as of right now, kind of see some of these kids, making decisions a little bit sooner than they were anticipating. Because a lot of kids, still at the same time, they want to make decisions before they get into their senior season. And there's a lot of programs that are hoping to get more commitments before the season starts, because they need to know kind of where they stand. Especially with Alabama, they don't want to be sitting with 5 or 6 commitments come August, which they won't. I'm not too concerned about that, but a lot of programs are certainly hoping to get more commitments on board, and then once the season starts, kind of figure out, all right, here are the guys that we really need to focus on, really need to try to land between now and signing day.
Yeah, and if you follow all our coverage, we've been dropping daily nuggets. I know a lot of people are curious about Brockemeyer, the McKinstry kid. There's a lot of key targets, and you can follow all that coverage on BamaInsider.com. And again, thanks for joining us tonight. Bone, if we look at particular areas of need in this recruiting class, and granted there's only 5 commitments, what would you say the biggest area of need is for Nick Saban in the class of 2021?
Going into this recruiting cycle, I said, wide receiver, offensive line, those are going to be the key points of emphasis that Alabama really needs to load up on. And obviously, other positions, you can continue to load up at those positions. But, the biggest points in need are definitely wide receiver, offensive line. So far, no offensive line commitments, but there's a lot of guys that are out there that they're heavily recruiting, heavily involved in, a lot of highly ranked kids. And we'll talk about those guys tonight. But, wide receiver wise, they're already starting off pretty strong. Ajay Hall, big time commitment out of Florida, committed about a month or so ago. And then getting Ja'Cory Brooks about 2 weeks ago, number 18 overall player in the Rivals 100. Those are 2 really elite wide receivers. from the Sunshine State. I mean, getting that Florida speed, I mean, that's certainly a big plus. And there's certainly some more guys out there, including some more guys in the state of Florida that they're heavily recruiting. But I think they'll end up probably around 4 wide receiver commitments in this year's class. Offensive line numbers, no offensive line commitments just yet, like I said. But I think they're trying to sign at least 5, maybe even 6 offensive linemen overall.
All right, we turn on the call-in line, 205-686-3604. Call-in line is open if you want to get your call in tonight and catch up with Andrew Bone. I'll field the call, and I'll turn over to Andrew. Bone, we had an article today on BamaInsider.com about another wide receiver, if we can kind of touch on him while we wait for our first call. Malcolm Johnson, I watched his tape, watched the nugget. It really impressive. I mean, this is a guy, when you talk about speed, and you mentioned this, Alabama's trying to find that speed guy in case, obviously Jalen Waddle will probably be gone after this season, and so would Devontae Smith. So, Christian Leary or Malcolm, Johnson looks like a guy, and I believe we have our first call coming in tonight. So let's get to that, and then we'll come back to Malcolm. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Who are on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, this is Terry.
Terry from Birmingham. All right, you're on the line with Andrew Bone. You having a good night tonight?
I am. You guys?
Yeah. Thank you very much for calling. I'm going to turn you over to Andrew right now. Go ahead.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. I think I want to ask you. So what do you think is? I got a particular question. First question is: which one do you think is the likeliest scenario for the wide receiver to happen? Do you think Christian Leary and Ryan Thomas to end out with, or Christian Leary, and possibly Xavier Worthy?
Did you get that? I know.
Yeah. So, 2 of Alabama's, still trying to sign 2 more try to get 2 more wide receiver commitments in this class. And, I guess the first guy that we're going to see make a decision out of that group that you mentioned, Christian Leary, as of right now, currently planning on announcing his decision on June the 6th. It's really looking like it's a tight battle between Alabama, Florida, and Oklahoma. I know he put out a top 6, I think earlier this month, but from everybody that I've talked to, it's a kind of a 3-way battle right now between those schools. Obviously Oklahoma recruiting extremely well, and just picked up a big 5-star wide receiver commitment in Mario Williams last week, also out of Florida. I think there's still maybe a little bit of confidence coming out of Norman in terms of getting Christian Leary, but I think he ends up staying a little bit closer to home. Now, does that mean he ends up at Florida, or does he end up going a little bit further away from home and going to Alabama? Just don't know. Right now, we keep hearing a little bit more about Alabama, but I'm not ready to put a prediction in for the Crimson Tide just yet. And the only hesitation that I have is that he's never visited Alabama before. He has taken some virtual visits. That's kind of what a lot of these recruits are doing right now, these virtual campus tours and seeing the campus, spending time with the coaches. And they're hoping to get to campus as quickly as possible. But I think it's always tough when you're recruiting a kid that you really want and he's never even visited the campus before. So, I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that one. But as of right now, still would not be surprised if he ends up at Alabama. There's some other guys that are out there that I consider speed guys that, kind of like Henry Ruggs. They're a little bit smaller, but they're real quick, they're real fast. And, I think Alabama really wants to try to add at least one of those guys. And, Christian Leary, one of them, Malcolm Johnson out of Virginia, certainly another guy that they really like a lot. And, as you mentioned, Xavier Worthy out of California, another guy that has not visited Alabama just yet. He just received an offer from the Crimson Tide about a week ago. So, he has a lot of, high praise for Alabama, but I think until you kind of get them on campus, let them see everything, you have to kind of just wait. And plus, it's a little bit further from home, all the way out in California, as opposed to Orlando for Christian Leary, another guy that has not visited campus just yet. Now, Brian Thomas has visited Alabama several times. A lot of people say that Alabama's in the driver's seat for him, but the only problem with him is he wants to wait. He wants to wait all the way until January to make a decision. As of right now, plans on waiting until the Under Armour All-America game in January to announce his commitment. So, I think we got to kind of wait and see where is Alabama, at that time? Do they have 4 wide receiver commitments? Do they potentially have 5? I don't think they'll have 5 commitments by then. I think he would certainly be a guy that they will wait on. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough to predict right now. I mean, they're sitting really good right now with 2 very outstanding wide receiver commitments. I think it puts a little bit of pressure on some guys to, maybe make a decision, which, could potentially, if let's say Christian Leary decides to commit on June the 6th to Alabama, maybe that puts some pressure on Brian Thomas to go ahead and make a decision. Maybe that puts some pressure on Malcolm Johnson to make a decision. So I think we all just have to kind of wait and see what happens there. But as of right now, I think that Alabama is probably in better shape with, let's say, Christian Leary and Brian Thomas. But Malcolm Johnson, we have an interview with him today on BamaInsider.com. Tony Tsoukalas did a great interview with him. Spoke very highly of Alabama, talking to the coaches just about every single day. So they certainly are making him feel like a top priority, and he certainly wants to get to Alabama as quickly as possible. So when like I said, when you're dealing with guys who haven't visited campus yet and have visited other places and have schools, other programs high on their list that they have visited, you just never know. But this is a different year. This is one of those years where a lot of kids aren't going to be able to take visits because of the coronavirus. So, we'll probably be surprised with some of these kids' decisions on programs that they haven't visited before.
Right. I agree. My other question I want to ask is, I noticed that Terry Arnold got the basketball offer to Alabama today. Who do you think is the most likely to take the offer for football or basketball between Kool-Aid and Arnold? And also, do you think their recruiters are going to go to early or National Signing Day?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you brought it, Terry and Arnold. He's been in contact with the basketball coaching staff, even before today. I mean, they've been talking to him a good bit. And he also, visited, a couple months ago. And when he was when he took that visit a few months ago, he spent a lot of time with the basketball coaches. I was actually kind of surprised. In my mind, for some reason, I thought he'd already had that basketball offer just because of how much he's been talking to the basketball staff. But in terms of their decisions, Terrian told me that he's going to wait a while. Originally he was going to make an early decision, but now he says, may take it all the way down to February just because he hasn't been able to, take any visits during the spring or, and may not be able to take any during the summer as well. So as of right now, he wants to wait all the way until February. Of course, a lot of kids say that. And then, once we get into the season, they decide they want to go ahead and make a decision. So have to kind of wait and see what he wants to do. In terms of Kool-Aid, Quincy McKinstry, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama from Pinson Valley, came out with his top 5 the other day. Wasn't really surprised by any of those schools: Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Georgia, and Auburn. He says he's probably going to make a decision before the start of the season. I really like Alabama's chances there. I've always liked Alabama's chances there. I know that there's been a lot of talk that he could go out of state. He's going to have to commit out of state before I believe he's not going to Alabama. He just visited Tuscaloosa so many times, has such a great connection with the coaching staff. In terms of are they going to end up playing basketball? I think it's just kind of a wait and see. We've seen so many guys that have said, all right, I'm going to go to Alabama, or I'm going to go to Florida State, or I'm going to go to Tennessee, or wherever it may be. I'm going to do this sport and that sport, whether it's football and track, football and baseball, football and basketball. I think they'll both sign football scholarships. Have the ability to play basketball at those schools, but I think it's just going to be once they get to campus, then they'll kind of figure out, what they're going to do. I don't think a final decision is going to be made, until they arrive on campus.
Good stuff. I just been really enjoying this content you guys are giving.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Terry. We'll catch up with you soon next time. All right, buddy?
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Good call to lead off the show. And as our caller said, that was Terry from Birmingham, by the way. Thank you very much for calling. Great questions. Terry and Arnold got offered to play basketball at Alabama. So, I mean, it's pretty incredible that you get offered, number 1, to play Division I, but in 2 sports. That's unbelievable. Call line is open, 205-686-3604 if you want to call in and get your question answered with Andrew Bone. I mean, obviously, Alabama starting to build some momentum. going into this next week as we push into the month of June. Here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com, you can catch all our coverage back on BamaInsider.com. I think, when we look at, key needs, we've talked a lot about wide receivers, and you provided a great update on the Brockermeyer brothers. If you haven't checked that out, go to our YouTube page. I mean, you've talked a lot about these guys, Tommy and James Brockermeyer, but just they would be vital additions to the class of 2021, obviously, right, Bone?
Yeah, absolutely. Two twins. Hadn't really seen two twins, rated this highly in a while. Tommy being rated as a number 10 overall player in the Rivals 100, one of the top offensive tackles. You also have James, who's one of the top centers in the country, just got included in the Rivals 250. And I think both of them certainly want to play together. I talked to them, about a month ago, and they said that as of right now, they definitely plan on playing together. Got a lot of similar offers. A lot of schools that are heavily interested in them. I think it really comes down to two schools, and I know there's other programs in there, but I think it comes down to Alabama and Texas. They really like LSU a lot as well, but I don't see them going to LSU. I think it's Alabama or Texas. Texas, their legacies there. Definitely a lot of pressure to go there. Not from their family, but certainly from the community, from fans who follow them on social media and everything, want them to follow in their father's footsteps. Father was an All-American there in the early 90s. Was a heavily rated recruit coming out of high school, and they're certainly getting a lot of attention in that aspect as well. But they visited Alabama a few times. They're visited in April, but visit. Let's jump on this next call though.
Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Who are on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
My name's Matt Moore. I'm from East Tennessee.
All right. Thanks for calling tonight. You're on with Andrew Bone. I'll turn you over to Bone. Go ahead, buddy.
I was wondering if you had any updates about the wide receiver, Brian Thomas.
Yeah, Brian Thomas, one of the top receivers out of Louisiana, in the Rivals 100, I think he's number 92 overall. He's visited Alabama several times. I think his top two schools, Alabama and LSU. Now, we kind of thought that he might make a decision a little early, but recently, our most recent update with him says he's going to wait. Says he wants to wait all the way until the Under Armour game in January. He wants to take some more visits. Now, he was at Alabama for Junior Day. He was one of those few guys who was able to sneak in, before the coronavirus hit and kind of shut down the entire country, or really shut down the entire world. But he was able to sneak one more visit into Tuscaloosa, which I think helps. And like I kind of said earlier, I think a lot's going to kind of depend on, where's Alabama at in their recruiting class come January when he decides to commit. Let's say Christian Leary decides to commit to Alabama on June the 6th. That gives Alabama 3 wide receiver commitments. Well, as of right now, unless they decide to change it, they plan on taking 4 wide receiver commitments. So you have one more spot available. Does that give some pressure to Brian Thomas or Malcolm Johnson or Xavier Worthy, somebody like that, to go ahead and make a decision? Now, let's say a 4th wide receiver comes on before Brian Thomas commits. Will they save a spot for him come January? I think a lot of that's just going to depend on the overall numbers, because Alabama, from what I've seen, they always have a set number. We're going to take this number of players on the offensive line. We're going to take this number of players at wide receiver. But then once you kind of get into January, a little bit maybe before signing day, you kind of look and say, all right, well, we've got this number. We don't really have to get any more players at this position, but if this guy's still available, let's go after him. Let's go get him. So as of right now, I still like Alabama's chances with Brian Thomas. I would still predict him to Alabama, but he is going to wait. As of right now, he's going to wait it out, enjoy this process, and maybe take some visits, once this kind of dead period ends and they can start taking visits again. But as of right now, still like Alabama's chances, but we'll kind of have to wait and see kind of where they're at as an overall recruiting class, and also, how many wide receiver commitments they have around the time that he wants to make a decision.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right, that was Matt in Tennessee. Appreciate you calling in. Hey, Bone, we had a question coming in, and this is from one of our loyalty club members. So I definitely wanted to get to him. He was talking. Let me bring it up real quick. Mr. Billy Dawson, first of all, thank you very much for being a Loyalty Club member right here on YouTube. You could obviously tell everyone the nuggets that they're getting behind the paywall, right? I mean, it's certainly worth it. He asked about the running back targets, and I think it's a valid question because we haven't really talked about any key running backs. And granted, Alabama has Najee Harris, Kellen Robinson, Trey Sanders. I mean, all those running backs that they signed from 2020 and Brian Robinson, so many guys. But he mentions that he really likes Kyrie Young, Joseph McCray. Can you talk about some running back targets that are out there?
Yeah, Alabama always wants to try to sign at least one running back in the recruiting class. And I mentioned this the other day on the recruiting board, how I think it was 2013. I think that's right. 2013 or 14, can't remember. Alabama signed 4 running backs that year: Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. You had Tyron Jones and also Alti Tenpenny. 4 running backs. And I kind of thought that once they signed 4 running backs, you kind of had a feeling somebody was going to transfer. But then the next year, ended up signing Bo Scarborough. Ronnie Clark ended up being a running back, but he was recruited more as an athlete. So he ended up signing 1 running back, but it ended up being Scarborough. This year there's some top guys that are out there. They signed 3 running backs in last year's recruiting class. This year, they're going after kind of some big names. Kamar Wheaton, top running back in the country, out of Texas. Certainly a guy that has a lot of interest in Alabama. As of right now, I wouldn't say that he's going to Alabama. I don't even think he's probably in Alabama. Alabama probably is in his top 3, but they're going after him. They're recruiting him. They're trying to see if they can get him back on campus for a visit before he makes a decision. Donovan Edwards out of Michigan, another guy that they've heavily recruited. Evan Pryor out of North Carolina, committed to Ohio State, but definitely somebody that they like a lot and would hope to get back on campus for a visit. Those are kind of the 3 guys that they're heavily recruiting that they would certainly take commitments from. Joseph McKay out of Central High School in Phoenix City here in Alabama, guy that got an offer from Alabama, about a month or so ago. As of right now, I think he would probably be kind of a wait and see kind of guy. They want to evaluate him maybe a little bit more. They may want to wait and see kind of what happens with some of these other bigger backs, elite backs. See if once they make a decision, they may move on to somebody else. Also, don't think it may not necessarily be a year where they take a running back. I think they may take a stab at some of these big name guys, and once they commit elsewhere, they may move on to somebody else, but I don't think it's going to be really that big of a deal. But still wouldn't be surprised if they sign at least 1 back. But I think 1 is kind of the absolute max there. I don't see them signing 2 backs in this class, but I think they'll go after the big names first, and then a little bit down the road, maybe even closer to signing day, maybe go after somebody else, or at least try to get somebody that's committed somewhere on campus for an official visit and kind of see where things go. But yeah, I mean, we saw a few years ago, Josh Jacobs got an offer from Alabama really 2 days before National Signing Day, and we saw how that turned out. So maybe they have another Josh Jacobs in the fold that they end up finding after his senior season. So they're always evaluating guys, always recruiting, always looking for somebody. So I wouldn't just focus on those guys, those 3 guys. I think there are going to be some more names that pop up down the road, especially after, well, at least if those guys commit elsewhere, they'll start, really focusing on some other guys.
Hey, Bone. So we got another question coming in while we wait for our next call. And if we get the next call, we're going to take the next call, and then Bone will get back to you. But Michael asks, he's curious about Quincy McKinstry and saying that LSU has made some inroads with him. And before we get to that, we'll take this call, and then we'll get back with Kool-Aid, because I know everybody wants to talk about it. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Who are on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, guys. It's Chris from Massachusetts.
Hey, what's up, Chris? How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing it. I'm hanging in there.
Hey, man, Chris, will you hang on real tight while Bone gets to everybody on Quincy McKinstry? It's obviously a very important prospect, very important target, and then he'll get your question next, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, go ahead, Bone.
With Kool-Aid, you just never know what's going to happen with him. I mean, I've said from day one that I would be shocked if he goes anywhere else other than Alabama. I mean, he's visited Tuscaloosa just so many times, even more times than we've even reported. I mean, I think that's just how comfortable he is down in Tuscaloosa. Goes down there, spends time with the coaching staff. Obviously, not in the last couple of months, but before that, I mean, he's just spent so much time down there. He's got a lot of friends on the team, and he's a big need for Alabama this year, and he's certainly a big time target. But LSU, there's been some talk about LSU, really kind of getting them in the mix with him. Auburn's always kind of been there. I don't really see him going anywhere else. I mean, I know Clemson's in it, I know Georgia's in it, but if I had to kind of narrow the focus down, I would say Alabama, LSU, Auburn. I know that there's been some talk about LSU here lately, but I still would be shocked. I would be surprised if he ended up going to LSU. But you got to recruit these guys. You can't just automatically assume these guys are going to Alabama. Even if they're legacies, even if they're Marlon Humphrey. Several years ago, everybody just assumed he was going to Alabama. They didn't really realize that Florida State was in the driver's seat for several months. Not just at one point. I mean, they were in the driver's seat. Bobby Humphrey would tell you, he thought Marlon was going to Florida State at one point. So you got to always recruit these guys all the way up. Even if they're committed right now, you got to recruit them all the way until signing day, until they sign. So I think Alabama's continuing to make Kool-Aid a top priority. Carl Scott, defensive backs coach, has done a great job recruiting him. He's in charge of the Birmingham area, and I'd be shocked if they lost out on him. But LSU certainly in it, Auburn certainly in it. These other schools are in it, but as of right now, I still feel comfortable saying that I think he ends up at Alabama.
Hey, Chris, it's Chris, right?
Yeah.
And it was from Massachusetts. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. You're on with Andrew. Go ahead, take it.
Hey, Bone. Yeah, I got like two questions.
Okay.
Go through the first part. I want to know. I mean, I haven't heard. I don't think anyone really talk about it, but do you? I know how all these other teams have these 20 commitments or 15. Do you see any commitments flipping to Bama? Like any? Doesn't have to be 5-star, 4-star, just anywhere.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, I think the biggest thing is getting these guys, back on campus. Once this dead period ends, once kids can start visiting again, I think, I've said this before, I think we're going to see, and not necessarily to Alabama or from Alabama, but I think we'll see more decommitments than ever before in this recruiting cycle, because we've seen so many kids make decisions. And I think a lot of them kind of feel pressured. They need to make a commitment right now, because they're not going to be able to visit these schools before their senior season. But once they kind of get into their senior season, they start taking their official visits. They start seeing some things that they didn't see before. They start realizing some things they didn't realize before, or maybe they want to stay closer to home, or maybe they want to get. It doesn't. You just never know what may happen. But I think we're going to see a lot of kids flip their commitments, in the fall or closer to signing day. Now there's obviously some guys that Alabama's still heavily recruiting that they would really like to get, and I mentioned Evan Pryor earlier, who's committed to Ohio State. If they can get him back on campus, you may have a chance. Jalen Milroe, who's a quarterback committed to Texas, I know they're still recruiting him, would like to get him on campus for a visit. There's just a lot of guys out there. There's some guys that are committed to Clemson. Jordan Hancock, one of the top cornerbacks in the country, that I think Alabama felt like they were going to end up getting, but he ends up committing to Clemson instead. Of course, with Clemson, you have to pretty much decommit before you start taking visits elsewhere. So that's going to be kind of tough to do. But I know that they would still welcome him in for a visit if he wants to do that. But there's certainly some other guys that are out there that they're heavily recruiting that they would like to get on campus. But overall, in general, throughout the entire country, I would not be surprised if we saw more decommitments than ever before.
All right. Yeah, I figured that. And my second question, last recruiting cycle, our outside linebacker class was probably the best Saban's ever done. But the interior defensive line for this year, do you think this is going to be a big class for them?
Yeah, I do. There's several guys who are continuing to wait. In terms of making decisions. I think there's some guys who probably are heavily favoring Alabama, but for some reason or another, they want to wait it out and kind of enjoy the process a little bit more. Obviously, they got a big commitment about a month ago from Anquin Barnes, 6'5", 310-pound defensive tackle from Lee High School in Montgomery. Tim Keenan, another big-time in-state defensive lineman from Ramsey High School in Birmingham. I've said from day one that I think that Alabama's has a commanding lead for him, but for some reason or another, he's just continuing to wait it out. We saw him put out I was kind of surprised because he's been recruited for about 3 years now. He put out a top 13. I kind of thought he would at least narrow it down to a top 5, but he narrowed it down to a top 13. And I still think Alabama's in the driver's seat for him. They're still pushing for Lee Hunter, who's committed to Auburn out of Pritchard, Alabama, down in Mobile. Damon Payne, who is a heavily recruited defensive lineman, one of the top defensive tackles in the country. Certainly a guy that they are, they hope to add. And I think they're in the driver's seat for out of Michigan. Tywon Malone, another big guy from up in the Northeast, somebody that they are heavily recruiting. He actually put out a top 13 the other day as well, and Alabama was in it. But there's a lot of defensive linemen that are out there. They're heavily recruiting. But for some reason or another, a lot of these kids are just kind of waiting and hoping to take some more visits before they make a decision. But I think this can be a really good defensive line class. They just have to get some of these guys on board, and I think they're like I said, I think they're in the lead for some of these guys. Damon Payne, Tim Keenan, those are two guys that I feel like they're in the driver's seat for at this time.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Bone. Thanks, Kyle.
Right. Thanks a lot.
All right, appreciate it. It's good calls. Appreciate it. We enjoy all the calls. So certainly thank you so much for calling in. Call line is 205-686-3604. I got a couple banners on the screen this time. A lot of people were like, where's the call-in show? I think we had another question that I wanted to get to. Let me find it out. I think it was regarding junior college players. Let me roll through real quick. Oh, actually, there's been a couple questions, Bone, on the comment box, and I'll put one up right now. How are things with Hudson Wolfe? I know you've talked about him several times, and we'll get to Hudson Wolfe. Let me take this call real quick.
Okay.
Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Cool. Can you turn your volume down real quick, sir, or ma'am, whoever's calling in? Turn the background volume.
Sure.
All right.
Is that better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It should be. I'll tell you if it's not. Who are on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
JD,
Yeah, JD. I think there's still a brief echo, so I'll tell you what. Ask your question real quick, and Bone will get to you.
Hold on, let me take it off speaker.
Okay. Give JD a quick second.
Yeah, speaker might be. My wife, she yells at me all the time when my phone's on. So that's probably what it is.
All right. JD called last week. He's from Anniston, I believe. JD, are you with us still?
I am with you.
All right.
Well, hear you now.
All right, JD, I'm going to let Bone finish up on Hudson Wolfe real quick, give a quick update, and then I'll turn it over to you. Is that good with you, JD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Bone.
All right, Hudson Wolfe, number one tight end in the country out of Savannah, Tennessee, not Savannah, Georgia. Definitely a top target for Alabama, top target for a lot of programs. As of right now, I think Alabama's probably a little bit on the outside, even though he's visited Tuscaloosa several times. Ohio State seems to be the trendy pick for him. Ohio State, obviously, having a great recruiting class, but I think they've done a really good job recruiting him thus far. He was scheduled to visit Alabama on June the 20th. He was going to take an official visit to Ohio State on June the 12th, and then take one to Alabama on June the 20th. Potentially make a decision after those two visits, but obviously those are getting pushed back. So not sure if he's going to go ahead and make a decision or not. Haven't really heard anything yet. Tennessee obviously having a great recruiting class. Grew up a Tennessee fan. They're certainly in the mix. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, that coaching staff heavily recruiting him. He's got a good connection with those guys. But as of right now, I think Alabama's probably sitting on the outside. It's kind of weird. The tight end position is kind of weird this year. They missed on some guys last year. Potentially miss on some guys this year, but we got a great article on Bama Insider today with a tight end out of South Carolina, Robbie Oates. I I don't know if I'm saying it correctly or not, but he's from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Talked heavily about Alabama. Only problem is he hasn't visited Tuscaloosa yet. Was hoping to visit during the spring, but certainly a guy that I would say that Alabama may have a better chance with right now than Hudson Wolfe. Thomas Fedone out of Council Bluffs, Iowa, is another guy that they're heavily recruiting. But we'll see. I mean, you just never know. Once these kids kind of resume taking official visits, anything's possible. So we'll just kind of have to wait. But as of right now, I just think Alabama's probably sitting on the outside with Hudson Wolfe.
All right, Bone, you're on with JD from Anniston. Go ahead, JD.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, got a couple of questions on defensive ends. They're recruiting a kid from Maryland and one from Orlando.
Yeah, you're right.
How many ends are they going to take?
Yeah, I think 2. They certainly want to add 2. I mean, if they could get 3, wouldn't be surprised if they took 3 at all. But I think 2 is certainly a number that they're aiming for. That's at least their goal. They want to get 2 really good defensive ends. Monkel Goodwine out of Maryland, we've said from day one has had Alabama in the lead. Of course, he hasn't visited Tuscaloosa in a while. He was hoping to get back for Junior Day, didn't make it. It's hoping to get back during the spring, maybe for the spring game, didn't make it. But Alabama's still extremely high on his list. I think Alabama's still in the driver's seat for him. Chambry Jackson out of Orlando did visit Alabama for Junior Day, and definitely getting a lot of attention from the coaching staff. Talks to the staff just about every single day. He's certainly a guy that we're keeping a very close eye on. I think his decision probably comes down to Alabama and Florida State. He's definitely got a lot of interest in the Seminoles. He's actually originally from Kansas. He didn't grow up in Kansas. Was born in Kansas, moved from Kansas to Orlando when he was about 3 years old. His mom actually ran track at Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's in the mix a little bit. I just don't think he ends up going there. And then another guy to watch out for is Shamar Turner, defensive end out of Texas, a guy that they're heavily recruiting, heavily interested in. Then let's see who else. Midwest guy, TJ Bowlers. He's another guy that they're very involved with, heavily recruiting. Just hasn't visited Tuscaloosa yet, so I think if they can get him down for a visit, they might have a chance with him. But in terms of guys who I feel like they have the best chance with right now, I'd be looking at guys like Chambry Jackson, Monkel Goodwine, and Shamar Turner.
Jackson caused a lot of negative plays last year, didn't he?
Who was this?
Jackson from Orlando.
Jackson from Orlando. Who are we talking about?
Wait, maybe I got the name wrong. The defensive end from Orlando that.
Why am I drawing a blank right now?
No, you're just mentioning the one from.
Okay. I thought you were meaning somebody that was on the team right now.
No, he caused a lot of negative plays last year.
Yeah, he certainly did, and I think he had, almost 15 or 16 sacks last year as well. So he had an unbelievable junior season, and certainly a guy that Alabama is extremely high on. When he visited Tuscaloosa back for Junior Day, I mean, I think once they kind of saw him a little bit more in person, and I think he had actually attended a game last fall as well. You see these guys in person, that's kind of when all right, we're going to start really pressing for these guys, because of their size. You can, kids can look any certain way on film, but once you kind of measure them up and see them up close, then you kind of decide, all right, we're gonna make a big press for this guy because he can develop into something pretty special.
Yes, sir. I'll leave you with one question. I'll get off where somebody else can call.
All right.
The quarterback from California, and I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, so Miller Moss out of California, certainly one of the top overall quarterbacks in the country, has talked about potentially reclassifying and enrolling that, he can do that and reclassifying to the 2020 class. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to kind of see what he ends up doing because, you look at his top 4 schools, Alabama, LSU, USC, UCLA. Does he end up? It seems like the best bet is UCLA just because they don't have a quarterback commitment. You look at USC; they have Jake Garcia, who's a top quarterback from California that's committed. You look at LSU; they end up getting 2 quarterbacks last year. They have Garrett Nussmeier committed in this year's recruiting class. Alabama obviously does not have a quarterback commitment right now, but they did sign Bryce Young last year, the number 1 quarterback in the country. So. It's kind of tough to figure out because, he was one of those kids who was going to take all these visits during the spring and enjoy the process and then hopefully make a decision. But he's still available. He's still out there. I think Alabama has a chance with him. I probably wouldn't put my money on them right now. I think they're probably going to end up with somebody else. But he's definitely interested. I wouldn't bet on Alabama at this point until he at least returns to campus one more time, visits, and feels comfortable. But if he makes a decision before getting back to Tuscaloosa, I would certainly think he goes elsewhere.
All right, Bone. We appreciate the call. So
well, thanks, JD.
Yeah, thank you so much, JD. JD's a double caller. It's called last time. I wanted to get to there was a question real quick. It was a team question, and I wanted to post this up. It was asking Mike Coleman as inside look into the new strength coaches. So Source actually told me recently about Dave Ballou and Matt Ray. Now, obviously, these guys haven't been able to meet with the players because of the social distancing guidelines and COVID-19 and everything that's taking place. However, I did get a nugget today that the approach that Dr. Matt Ray and David Ballou are taking is a highly knowledgeable aspect and approach. And the key focus is flexibility. They really want to prevent these injuries that have happened in the past to Alabama. Obviously, you can't throw all of that on Scott Cochran because, sometimes you just have injuries. But flexibility is a major focus along with speed. And we'll dive into it more when we talk team. But I think the speed factor is going to be really excited to look at. I think like a guy like Christian Barmore, for example. Can you imagine if he gets faster, if he gets a little bit leaner? In fact, he looks a little bit leaner from the footage we've seen. Obviously, the speed guys, John Mechie, Jalen Waddle, if those guys are getting faster, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's super exciting to think about. So when we talk team, we'll talk more about that. But I just kind of wanted to post that on the board real quick. Call-in line is open. 205-686-3604 is the call-in line. We got a couple of questions coming in, Bone. On Blackshear, a couple of linebackers. I know you touched on that earlier, but can you give an update on Blackshear? I know that out of all the linebackers, and we'll take this call and then we'll get to Blackshear. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle and Andrew. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? It's Sean from Madison.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
how you guys doing?
Good, Sean. I'm going to let Bone give a quick update on Blackshear just real fast, and then I'll turn it over to you, Sean, okay? Go ahead, Bone.
No problem.
Yeah, in terms of linebacker recruiting, I think they they got a great linebacker commitment already, and Deontay Lawson out of Mobile Christian, could play inside, could play outside. As of right now, I think he probably ends up inside linebacker, 6'3", about 215 pounds. He's going to get a little bit bigger. In terms of Blackshear, we thought he was going to commit. A month and a half ago, decided to hold off. I still feel very confident that Alabama ends up landing his commitment. Jeremiah Williams, I think we're probably going to see, like I said earlier, I think we're going to see some guys potentially make decisions sooner than they were expecting. And I think Jeremiah Williams, maybe Kendrick Blackshear are two of those guys who we could see maybe decide in the next few weeks or month or so. Jeremiah Williams from Ramsey High School here in Birmingham. I think it comes down to Alabama and Auburn. He grew up an Auburn fan, but definitely getting a lot of attention from the Crimson Tide, and definitely likes Alabama a lot. Has had multiple FaceTime calls with Nick Saban, so would not be surprised if he goes to Alabama. But always got to look at Auburn as a program that he grew up cheering for, liking, and definitely a program that offered him kind of early. And there's some other guys that are out there. Dallas Turner, Keno Cott. There's some I'm trying to think of some other guys off the top of my head out of Xavier and Sori. Those are some guys, three guys who can play on the outside, maybe more edge type guys that they're heavily involved in. Another big name in-state wise, Ian Jackson out of Prattville High School, 6'3", about 215, well, 6'2", 6'2.5", 215 pounds. Unbelievable junior season, Class 7A, first team All-State. Had about 91 tackles, 8 sacks, just ball hawk all over the field. I mean, just makes plays. I mean, he lines up at cornerback sometimes, but I think he ends up playing inside linebacker in college. I really like Alabama's chances with him. He's certainly a big-time target for them. And like you mentioned, there was a really good outside linebacker class for Alabama last year. Probably the best outside linebacker class that we've seen in the Nick Saban era. Still going after some outside linebackers, but also going after some guys who can play inside or out. And those are some of the bigger names: Blackshear, Jeremiah Williams, the guys out of Florida, also Ian Jackson, who we could potentially see make a decision sometime soon.
Hey, Sean, go ahead. You're on with Bone.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. I had 2 questions for you, Andrew.
Yeah.
I subscribe to you guys, and I wanted to ask about Quincy McKinstry. What's the latest on him? Because I had some guys I went to college with who said he said Georgia's real heavy on him. That's the first question. And the second question is, have you heard anything about the kid who decommitted from Clemson, the forward kid?
Yeah, 2 good questions. Kool-Aid. Yeah, it's funny. I think, what was it, 2016 recruiting class. I think my 2, most asked about questions were, where's Ben Davis and Mac Wilson going? It was an every single day thing. Where are those guys going? I mean, I still get asked on the message board, hey, where's Mac Wilson and right. Ben Davis going? That's how much I think, Kool-Aid, Quincy McKinstry. I mean, there's no doubt about it that he is the number 1 player in the state of Alabama, and everybody wants to know what he's going to do. And the fact that he's still not committed, even though he's been recruited for the last couple years. I mean, he's not one of these kids who just started getting recruited when he was a junior. I mean, he's been recruited since his freshman year and had all these offers. Right. Taking all these visits. I mean, he said in an interview the other day that he's been to Alabama over 10 times. He's been to Clemson. He's LSU over 5 times. So he's been to a lot of these programs. So the fact that he hasn't made a decision yet, still a little bit surprising. Says that he's still probably going to make a decision before the start of his senior season. We saw him put out a top 5 the other day with Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Clemson, and LSU. There's been a lot of talk about LSU with him. And I know that he likes their program a lot, and there seems to be some confidence coming out of Baton Rouge. I know Georgia's been high on him for a long time. I would just be shocked if he ends up anywhere other than Alabama. I just think he ends up at Alabama because of his connection with the coaching staff, his relationship with Carl Scott, the defensive backs coach. And I've seen other people throw out other defensive backs coaches that he's got a good connection with. Well, Carl Scott, in my opinion, is one of the best recruiting coaches in the country and recruits the area of Birmingham extremely well. And I think I'd be shocked if he misses out on Kool-Aid. So I think he'll decide before the season starts. And as of right now, still like Alabama's chances with him. And what was your second question?
The forward kid who decommitted from Clemson.
Yeah, Corey Foreman, number 1 player in the country out of California, defensive end, defensive lineman. I know that he's mentioned Alabama. I'd be absolutely shocked if he ends up in Tuscaloosa. Now, he visited Alabama last summer, but I never got really the sense after that visit that Alabama was really in it for him. Now, he may end up back in Tuscaloosa for an official visit down the road, but I think he ends up potentially back at Clemson or at USC. I think one of the biggest reasons was decommitting, and there's a lot of confidence coming out of USC about staying a little bit closer to home. So I'd really watch out with USC for him. Now there's been some talk about LSU and maybe a few other programs that are in it, but I think if he decommitted, since he decommitted from Clemson, I think the best bet is USC. But obviously, we'll continue to monitor it. And see if he makes a visit to Alabama or if he sets one up. But I wouldn't put Alabama, really with much of a chance at this point. But we'll wait and see what happens.
Hey, Sean.
Okay, Kyle, Andrew, thanks, guys. I appreciate you. You guys do a great job, and we'll continue to support.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Sean, appreciate it, man. Sean has been a long time caller out of Huntsville, and he always calls on the team side. So I'm happy to see him call on the recruiting side as well. Thank you very much, Sean. Call line is open. We'll be around for 10 more minutes. We're liking the show lineup every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. However, as we move into the summer months, the summertime, we got to hit the beach. So it might be, awkwardly scheduled because, we got to spend some time with the fam and get some sun while it's out. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Who are we on the line with and where are you calling from?
It's Vegas man from Atlanta.
Hey, what's up, Vegas man? Good to hear from you once again. I'll turn it right over to Bone. And Vegas man is a longtime subscriber to Bama Insider. So we're happy to have a subscriber call in. Vegas man, you're on with Bone.
Yeah, guys, really appreciate the show. This is great information.
Thanks, Vegas. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, Andrew, I got a question for you. With the dead period being extended through the end of June, do you think the staff is somewhat scrambling to schedule a bunch of visits in the month of July?
Yeah, it's possible. Obviously we don't know, what the situation is going to be, what the NCAA is going to allow. I mean, I'm sure they are talking to, a lot of different guys saying, hey, if things open back up and you can get here, we really want you here. And the problem is, you got every program in the country doing that with every single recruit that they're going after. And recruits are going to have to start narrowing it down from a top 13 to a top 5. With the situation the way it is, they're going to have to visit the schools that they really like, that are coming after them the hardest, that they feel like they are potentially going to end up at, and probably not wasting some of these programs' time, and especially with only being able to take so many visits now, and before the season starts or once the season starts, and you can only go to so many schools during the year. A lot of these programs, of course, a lot of these elite programs, let's say like IMG Academy, St. Francis, Mater Dei out of California, all these top programs. A lot of them play football on Saturdays, so a lot of these kids aren't going to be able to take visits until potentially after their senior season. So you really got to start narrowing it down a little bit. But I'm sure Alabama, along with all these other programs, are talking to their top targets, saying, hey, if things open back up, in July, we really want you here, and trying to set some things up. As we know, last summer, Alabama had a cookout in June. They also had another cookout in late July. I'm sure they're going to try to. I'm sure every program's trying to schedule at least one big recruiting event in the month of July if they can, and they're trying to get as many kids there as possible. But with Alabama, currently sitting with 5 commitments, we'll kind of see where they're at here in the next month or two in terms of overall commitments. They're certainly hoping to get some more on board between now and July. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and I had a second question, but somebody actually asked it and you answered it. It was about Hudson Wolfe.
Yeah.
So I understand where Alabama stands with him, but I just say that the kid out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, can play. He'd be a great consolation prize.
Yeah, Robbie Oates.
The staff is going to start pushing hard for.
Yeah, I think so. I think they already are. I think there's a few tight ends that they're really pushing hard for. Hudson Wolfe, Thomas Fedone, and Robbie Oates. You look at some of the guys that they really liked. Elijah Arroyo, who ended up committing to Miami, probably had Alabama in his top 2. We might see him potentially come back to Tuscaloosa once the dead period ends, and make another visit. Another guy, Jermaine Terry, who actually gave an early commitment before all this stuff happened, before the dead period hit, before coronavirus hit. Jermaine Terry committed to Cal. That was certainly one of Alabama's top tight end targets, and I think they're still in contact with him, hoping to potentially get him back on campus for a visit. So we'll see if maybe he comes back. But yeah, I mean, I think the best bet is the kid out of South Carolina as of right now.
Okay. Listen, guys, I really appreciate it. Again, really enjoyed the show. Thanks for having it.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. Yeah, we've we'll leave the call line open for a few more minutes. 205-686-3604 is the number to call in. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson, along with Tony Sukalis and Tyler Waldrop. We make up BamaInsider.com. Free promo code to BamaInsider.com is simply Roll Tide. That's one word. If you have any problems getting on the website, please hit me up, Kyle at BamaInsider.com. Bones obviously bringing in. We've got a lot of great content and a lot of great comments inside the comment box. So we sincerely appreciate the thumbs up, the super chats, all the subscriptions, whether you're following us here on YouTube, on BamaInsider.com. We got Twitter, we got Facebook, we got all that stuff. But we want to make sure to deliver the product to you. We know there's a lot of competition out there, but we feel that we're best to serve you. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to take your calls and to talk Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting tonight. We got another call coming in. All right, good evening. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. Who are we on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
This is David from Louisiana.
Hey, David. Good to hear from you. I usually hear from you during the team season, but now since it's recruiting season, I'm happy to have you call in. I'll turn you over to Andrew Bone.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, David, what's up?
Oh, not much. Just on the streets patrolling the little town of Mansfield, Louisiana, looking for a bad guy.
We're good.
But no, my question is, who are the key defensive backs that are, big guys, 6'3", 6'2", something like that, that can lock down the backfield that we're looking at trying to get?
Yeah, good question. I don't think we've talked about any defensive backs in this segment this evening, so it's a great question. Maybe end the night on that. There's several guys that are out there. I mean, you look at two guys who have football and basketball offers. Extremely athletic guys, bigger guys that are in the 6'1" range. Quincy McKinstry, Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid's about 6 feet tall, but then got Terry and Arnold out of Tallahassee, about 6'1", 180 pounds. Just got offered in basketball today. But those are two elite guys that Alabama's certainly hoping to land in this year's recruiting class. Jason Marshall out of Palmetto High School down in Miami. Another guy that they're heavily recruiting that they would really like to add. There's a couple guys out of Louisiana. Sage Ryan probably ends up at LSU. I mean, lives pretty close to Tiger Country. I would say that he's probably an LSU lean, but Alabama's in it. Alabama's probably in his top two. Jordan Gilbert, another guy out of Louisiana, they're heavily recruiting. We saw a junior college cornerback actually get offered today, Kyrie Young, out of East Mississippi. So he's another guy that we'll keep an eye on, see if he ends up making a visit to Tuscaloosa. But and there's some other guys that are committed elsewhere that Alabama's still potentially hoping to get on campus for a visit. I mentioned Jordan Hancock earlier, who's committed to Clemson. He's certainly been one of Alabama's top overall targets, but he knows that if he ends up visiting Alabama, he'll have to decommit from Clemson. So that will be that would take a lot. So we'll see if he ends up visiting, but you never know if some more guys may end up emerging, potentially even after their senior season. I mean, we've seen guys emerge late in the process several times before. Eddie Jackson, was a guy who didn't play during his junior season, played as a senior. I think he had 1,000 yards receiving during his senior season, and Alabama decides to push for him as a defensive back. And obviously we know how that turned out. So I think there's going to be some more guys who emerge, but those are kind of the main guys, that I just mentioned that they're heavily recruiting right now, and that I think they've got a good chance to land.
Okay, and the last question I have for you, it's just a personal opinion. Nick Saban had talked a year or so ago about he would like to see a 10-game season of SEC games and 2 Power 5 teams, on a schedule. How do you feel about that? Do you ever see that possibly ever happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I could see it happening. I mean, obviously, you want people to come to your games, and you have those, kind of your games that are guaranteed wins. That
New Mexico State.
Yeah, that they throw in there just to, because you're going through a rough schedule. I mean, you almost have to have some of those games because you're going. SEC is toughest conference in college football. You're SEC West toughest division in college football. You're going up against elite players, every single week, and it's tough to let's say you have Texas A&M, Georgia, Auburn, and LSU all back to back. That's how some programs are
Right.
having it. So tossing in somebody like, sorry, Kyle, New Mexico State. I mean, that certainly helps them out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it, a 10-game SEC schedule and maybe 2 Power 5 conferences. I mean, because you want to get the attendance there, you want to get people interested, you want to get fans to stay the whole game. So I mean, it's not really. I mean, I look at it as I don't really care that much. I mean, I was at Alabama when Alabama was getting beat every single week, so that wasn't a lot of fun. But it doesn't really matter to me. I think Alabama's good enough. They got a great program. They can compete every single week. Of course, you don't want to have to be in a situation where you lose one game and you're out of it. I mean, I think, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you can lose one game, but you lose 2 games and you're definitely out of it. So you just, I don't know. I mean, I'm indifferent on it. I think anybody's welcome to an opinion. I don't really have that much of an opinion. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other, I don't think.
Yeah, I know we got to play them small schools so they can stay open pretty much, because
exactly. It helps a lot of these other programs out. I mean, you think about some of these programs that come down to Tuscaloosa and they're getting $1 million they're getting $1 million payday just to come play in Tuscaloosa. And you got to think of how much that helps out their athletic department.
Shoot, I'll bring some of my guys I work with down there if they want to pay us $500,000. We'll play them. But anyways, y'all have a blessed one. I appreciate the info. I love the show, both shows. I keep up with both of y'all. And God bless each and every one of y'all, and y'all be safe.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Great show. Thank you very much, everyone, for calling in. We sincerely appreciate all the calls, all the comments. Be sure and like and subscribe to all of our content. We sincerely appreciate even a thumbs up. That goes a long way with our content. It helps other Alabama Crimson Tide football fans find our content right here on YouTube. Of course, all the coverage back at BamaInsider.com. Think about this. You can get this type of coverage every single day from Andrew Bone. You don't have to wait till every single Tuesday. You can talk with him tomorrow morning. You could talk with Bone. Sometimes I'll go on. Bone will be posting at like 2 a.m. updates. So if you want like nonstop updates, go to BamaInsider.com and look for Bone's premium recruiting board. It never stops. So obviously, he's bringing the fire on the recruiting front. We appreciate the business, and we hope to earn your business. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bone, did you have a good time? I know you did, man. You're on fire.
Oh yeah, great calls this evening. A lot of good questions in the chat, and like you said, I mean, this is an everyday. This isn't a once a week thing. I mean, this is an everyday thing on BamaInsider.com. I mean, you could go on BamaInsider.com, ask me a question that you didn't ask me tonight. I'm gonna answer it, right away. So jump on the site and join our community, because it's not just us that are on there. What makes our site so great is all the fans that we have on there, and you can connect with those people, and it's certainly a fantastic community of Alabama fans that I think people really enjoy communicating with, and sometimes arguing with, but everybody has their own opinion on different things, so it's a lot of fun, and I hope to see a lot of you guys on Bama Insider soon.
Yeah, hope to see you guys soon. Enjoy your loved ones. Have a great day. Let's be productive the rest of the week. For Andrew Bone, my name's Kyle Henderson. We'll catch you soon back at BamaInsider.com. Have a good night, everyone.
See ya.